Now, Juliegrace Brufke, congressional reporter for Axios, to talk about more the cabinet positions taking shape. Juliegrace, thanks for being here. What trends are you seeing in terms of who's in and who's out?
Well, I think we're definitely seeing a lot of the MAGA loyalists. I mean, Elise Stefanik, the announcement overnight. Previously, Nikki Haley held that role. We heard Trump say that she nor Mike Pompeo, some of the more neocon end of the ideology people that were in his last administration, are kind of being cut out there. So I think we're going to see the people that kind of really stuck with him and were surrogates throughout the campaign.
Does it sound as though some of the other names, Elon Musk is one, Vivek Ramaswamy another, RFK Jr. adding to that list, that those will come to fruition?
It's very possible. Transition team's working through that now, and I think there are a lot of very hopeful senators and a lot of hopeful House members. Now, the margins in the House will probably make it hard for some of those people that were eyeing admin spots, given the Republicans are really working with narrow margins there. But I think a lot of those talks are happening. There's people that are going down to Mar-a-Lago to speak with him, and we'll kind of see in the next few weeks who he ultimately taps for some of these major positions.
So we know Susie Wiles in charge of that vetting process. What exactly does it look like? And personal visits part of it, it sounds like.
So it's those discussions, kind of discussing their agenda and how they plan to kind of work to further his goals there. So I know there's a lot of people that have kind of been angling for this for months and months, and kind of going down and trying to have those discussions, Republicans trying to have those discussions with the president-elect. So he's got some decisions to make.
Juliegrace, there are reports that Trump is inclined to stay out of the Republican race for Senate Majority Leader. Will he?
We'll see. He hasn't waded in yet. There's a lot of outside pressure for people for, we've seen some conservative kind of firebrand personalities, like the Benny Johnsons and the Elon Musk kind of push for Rick Scott there, who was ultimately kind of seen as an underdog prior to Trump winning. And it seemed like it was kind of a two-way race between Senator Thune and Senator Cornyn. And Senator Thune's got a lot of backing there, and we'll kind of see how it pans out. And generally with leadership races, we've kind of seen that Trump's been very good at kind of tanking people in their hopes, as we saw from the last speaker's race. But these internal elections, sometimes those outside forces have traditionally not had as much of an impact on getting people over the finish line. So we'll see how that pans out for Rick Scott.
One thing that Trump did weigh in on regarding the Senate, he posted on Truth Social that any Republican senator seeking the coveted leadership position in the U.S. Senate must agree to recess appointments. Is this not something saved for emergencies? And what does that indicate about how the process will play forward?
Well, it sounds like everyone kind of vying for that position seems amenable to it, and he's kind of looking for fast confirmations there. So I'm not totally surprised by that move on his end. So all three of these candidates are kind of looking for his backing there. So it's going to be interesting to see how the next couple days pan out.
We're still waiting on some close races in Colorado, Arizona, California, and also Alaska to determine which way the House will go. But our partners at DDHQ predicting that Republicans will maintain control of the House. What are you hearing from your sources from the Democratic side about what that looks like and how they plan to regroup?
Well, I feel like right now, Democrats, it's kind of been a giant circular firing squad on pointing fingers on why they didn't perform better than they did. And I think there's a lot of talk of how they could have approached messaging differently. I've talked to some Democrats that feel like, especially with the economy, that maybe they should have kind of taken more of a path down how Bill Clinton kind of played things of "we feel your pain right now," instead of kind of highlighting that jobs numbers were decent and inflation, that inflation was being lowered. So I think there's kind of between moderates and progressives on how much they should have leaned into social issues has kind of been a big debate, and they're still kind of working on the autopsy of what went wrong there.
Yeah, back to the drawing board. Juliegrace Brufke, thank you so much for stopping by this morning. Really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.